Welcome to my channel, Living Linux. Today I'll be installing and playing with the Atari VCS or Atari 2600 emulator, Stella. And you could say that the Atari 2600 can be considered the grandfather of the games consoles. They were not the first, but it was the machine that really dominated the marketplace. And back in the days, I had an uncle and he bought one of those machines and he allowed us to play with it. And I think it was like in the early 80s. It really was something special back in those days. So when you search for Atari, you can see I already installed Stella. And there's also Atari, and that is to run or to emulate the Atari ST and up to the Falcon. And I have to admit, I'm not really familiar with those machines because I grew up with the Commodore 64 and the Commodore Amiga after that. And let's just say Amiga versus Atari was a bit like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. So you really had to love one and hate the other. And well, I guess you still see that with a lot of things. I mean, you had Mac versus PC, and probably there are multiple examples like that. But that's just a lot of history. And like I said, I don't have much experience with the Atari ST or the Atari Falcon. So I won't go into that. For today, we'll focus on Stella. So I already installed it. That's really easy. And you also have to get some ROMs to play games. Otherwise, you just have sort of like an empty shell. So I got the ROM collection from Atari Mania. I guess I have to say that from a pure legal point of view, well, it's probably not legal, but on the other hand, I guess you're not really hurting anyone anymore, because probably the physical copies, you probably can't buy them anymore other than perhaps some shops that specialize in vintage computer games. But what surprised me is that Atari actually announced the Atari VCS or the Atari box, I think. And what they actually did is that they have a custom case, and well, they could say they put in a single board computer, and in the end they settled for an AMD chip. It's not really a powerful chip, but it has some very capable video processing units. So it can do 4K HDR, and when you're not running the Atari emulator, then you probably can also watch 4K HDR movies with it. And as you can see, it runs a custom Atari OS based on optimized Debian. And in that case, I'm also wondering if they will release the source code, because in the end, well, at least they have to release the Linux part of it. And the custom Atari OS part, well, that remains to be seen if they will release that. I wouldn't be surprised they will be very reluctant to do so. And yeah. And there's also the PC Sandbox Mode. And that means you can install a second OS like Windows, Ubuntu, or Chrome. It was supposed to be shipping already, but because of all the problems with COVID-19, it has been postponed. And what is also a pity, that's up till now you can only order it in the USA. So I'm in the EU, so that means that officially I'm not able to buy one. And later on, when you will see the games, then you might be wondering why people are so excited about this, because of course this is a machine from the late 70s, so yeah, the graphics, they have really progressed through the years, and it's a really big difference with the current game consoles. But as you can read, that within the first day they already had more than $2 million in pre-orders. So that means that there are still a lot of people who are interested in this kind of machine. Well, I already downloaded the Rom files. It's a RAR file containing 2 zip files, so you can extract the games from the zip files respectively. So now we're going to start Stella. Okay, win closed unexpectedly. Okay. And let's see, options. And let's see where I can find. No, that's not it. No. Oh, yeah, of course. So you can just navigate. And one of the other videos, when I was showing MAME, someone mentioned he played River Raid back in the day. So we'll try that one. To select, and here it is. And I think with F1 you can switch between 1 player and 2 player, and then F2 is to reset the game or start the game, and then with the arrow keys you can navigate, and I think the spacebar is to fire. So we'll try it. So you have to be careful not to shoot your own fuel. So and I mean, of course, back in the day this was like really revolutionary. So with escape, you quit. And you could say that the game that started it all, it actually started as an arcade machine, but they also ported it to the Atari. And that is Pong. And you can control it with the mouse. So we'll press F2. And it's actually not that easy to play. Perhaps, oops, there you see. Oh. Let's see if I can score a point against the computer. You have to make sure that it really has a sharp angle, otherwise the computer is able to keep up. Oops, that was almost close. Darn. I'm preferably somewhere in the middle that it should pass. Oh. Well, okay, I give up. No point for me today. So that's it. And yes, I'm still investigating an emulator for the Commodore 64 and also for the Amiga. And who knows, one of those will be the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this and see you next time.